Hey there, I'm Fred Reed from CNY Live. We're here doing what we're now calling our Midnight Sun sessions. And to really kind of kick this off right now, I'd like to introduce Dave Frisina from The Rebel. Dave, thanks for coming down, talking to us.
Sure.
Yeah, we all know that you've been around for a long time, and I mean that in a compliment. And but I do want to start out with something because I know that 40 years of sound check is coming up. And my first question would be, what ever got you started to doing sound check 40 years ago?
Well, I was only right out of college when I first started at 95X back in '78. I was only 22 years old, and I was excited to be on radio. But when I first started, I was just doing weekends, and weekends eventually, just a few months later, became overnights. Back when there were DJs doing 2 to 6 in the morning live, before computers and all of that. So, I'd be doing my overnight shift, and I was looking for any way possible to be on the air, when people could actually hear me in the daytime, And one of the things is from doing overnights is that I would go out to clubs to meet people because I was new to the area. I graduated from Cortland State. And I'd go to the Poorhouse North or Copperfields or the Lost Horizon and see bands and meet people and meet bands. And then I'd go back, after last call, I'd get in my car and jump in my car and go back to the radio station and go on the air for 4 hours. So I was meeting a lot of musicians, and they were finding out we were the only rock station in town back then. And so invariably they'd come to visit me after they cleaned up their sets, and they'd roll in at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, with some beers and want to hang out and party. So, down the road, I said, well, maybe I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, hang out with my friends, promote their music, and get some extra airtime. So, I proposed doing sound check and sold it to the program directors at the time. And, December 2nd, 1979 was the first show. And it's been going ever since.
Wow. So that's like we said, 40 years ago. I mean, radio has changed exponentially in many different ways. Equipment and corporations taking over. I mean, it used to be a couple guys just running a radio station and maybe 2 or 3, WKRP in Cincinnati kind of thing. How do you, you're doing something different now with the Rebel and streaming. How does that all transition?
Well, I mean, one of the biggest misconceptions is that that I'm not in the same place doing the same thing. I'm pretty much, it's exactly what I've been doing at the Rebel for the last 8 years. It's the same studio on James Street, the same building as 95X where I started and 93Q. The only difference is we're not on the radio dial, but I'm using the same equipment. I've got the same support staff, the same advertising staff, the same resources. And the only thing is that people can find us now either through our website at therebelrocks.com. They can find us on our free mobile app, which is the Rebel Rocks, through any app store, or through Amazon Echo or Google Home, smart TVs. You can download the app. So there's lots of ways to get us that with equipment and available devices that people already have. So we're just basically doing a radio station on everything except a radio. And the fact is more people now are listening to music and radio on devices other than radios. You can listen on your phone, you can listen on headphones, you can use your phone to activate Bluetooth devices, whether it's in a car, on a motorcycle, which I have friends that listen that way. You can activate a small speaker, you can activate, I've got a Yamaha receiver that has a Bluetooth input on it. So there's so many ways to get us now. The signal is clear as a bell. You don't have to worry about static when you get outside of a certain range. And we're just giving people a radio station with all the new equipment that's available to pick up that signal.
All the new tech. So besides all the tech and everything, you have an open playlist now. You're not, we've heard people talk about it for years, the corporate playlist. You seem to be doing it all on your own now, almost like when you 78 and 79 started out, going picking your own music and stuff.
I'm a lot smarter now than I was. And there's a lot more music to play than there was back then. I mean, we're still playing a lot of the core music from late 60s, early 70s, 70s, early 80s, that, you know, the peak period of classic rock, and those artists that redefined that, everything from, you know, Zeppelin and the Stones and Floyd and all of those bands. But we are playing more album tracks from those bands. We're playing more deeper tracks, more one-hit wonders, a lot of more current bands, bands from the 90s and early 2000s that were getting airplay that nobody has been playing lately, and some newer artists that just fit the classic rock sound that come through town from time to time that nobody else is playing in town. So we're just showing people that, yeah, you can play something from 77 that sounds really good with something that may have come out last year, you know, depending on the artist.
So that really, the next question was, you can't really say, I mean, you are a classic rock station, but there's a different definition now to classic rock than a date.
Well, what's funny was when I started at 95X, there wasn't such a thing as classic rock. We were just playing current rock and music that had come out before that. You know, I mean, in 78, Some Girls from the Stones, Miss You, brand new. Here's something brand new from the Rolling Stones. Nobody had heard of Dire Straits or the Cars or, you know, any of these bands. They were all brand new. And the stuff that had come prior, well, you know, here's some music from the Beatles or Led Zeppelin, but it wasn't known as classic rock then because it was only just less than 10 years old in some cases.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do now is really more replicate that kind of a sound of a radio station, which used to be called AOR, Album-Oriented Rock, an FM progressive rock station, where you're playing music from the past and past artists that made it big and have familiar songs, but you're also mixing that in with music that's coming out currently that also fits that same compatible sound. So it's really like a step forward by taking a big step back. And so you're getting, to me, the best of both worlds.
And you're, besides what 95X does, because they do a local thing too, you're more progressive about playing local bands every hour.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that we amplified. We were doing it on Soundcheck on Sunday nights at 9 o'clock for a full hour. And we had been doing it at lunchtime during noon for local lunch. But then I said, why not reach the people that haven't yet discovered those two benchmarks, those two oasis, you know, spots. And so we're playing, I've got over probably close to 120 different songs by local artists that are rotating 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So every hour you're going to hear at least one local song. And the thing is that some of these songs are 20, 30 years old that were songs by those bands like a Todd Hoban band or a New York Flyers or an 805 or Flash Cubes, but some of them are bands that have come out in the last 5 years or last year. And you know, the sound quality stands up with most of the national stuff we play. You can come out of one song, hear a local band and go into another song, and from a quality, from a production standpoint, it's hard to tell the difference. It just sounds like something you're not familiar with yet.
Yeah.
Unless you're really keyed into the local music scene, then you're going, oh yeah, I know those guys.
And you're already tapping your foot and singing along in the car.
Exactly, you know. So our thing is to step up people's awareness of the music that's being made in town. We've got a lot of great recording studios in town now. We've got a lot of great bands making original music. And you know, with the fact that we are streaming across the country, around the world, and we're getting people listening from people, many out-of-state people, from Florida to California to Alaska, that maybe by doing this, somewhere somebody gets turned on to some of our music. You know, they hear a band that they hadn't heard before. Yeah, they've heard Ramble On from Zeppelin, but they haven't heard Chris Eves yet, or they haven't heard, you know, something from Root Shock yet, or they have, you know, so there's, and I have a friend in Florida that just said, who are these guys? Where are they from? I go, they're from Syracuse. And they're like, wow. So maybe we turn people on to some of our music scene, not only people that live here and can appreciate it locally, but people that don't live here, that have no other way to hear that stuff unless they're directly related to those people, you know.
So you do something different too in the mornings. You have the morning blend, which it's not a talk show. You don't have the people talking and doing everything. And most radio stations now, you got somebody talk all morning long. How do you feel that really how do you feel that people are taking to that?
Well, you know, we're swimming against the stream there. I mean, every morning show that I know of has 2 or 3 or 4 people in it. It's either a really good couple that's been together a long time, like Ted and Amy on 93Q, that are in our station, or are in our cluster, who just were inducted into New York State Broadcasters Hall of Fame. They've been together 30 years, and they're terrific at what they do. And there's other, Marty and Shannon at 95X. There's so many pairs or groups, either on a local or national level, that are talk-oriented. They're very conversational, and it's a good way to get your morning started. What we want to do is, look, we can't compete with that right now. I don't even want to try to build a morning show that people don't know. There's a lot that they do know. So we're just giving people something completely different. It's all music from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's called the Morning Blend, as you mentioned. And it's more of a mix of artists that nobody else is playing, that I play on my Soulshine show. It might be a Van Morrison or a Bonnie Raitt or John Prine or Bob Dylan thrown into the mix of classic rock that we do. And there might be, bands like Soul Asylum or the Wood Brothers or Tedeschi Trucks that have found their way into that mix. And it's just a different way to start your day. It's a full music mix. And there's still local stuff in there. There's local content. We do an hourly feature called What's Going On. It's a minute long that features upcoming shows on that particular day for club shows, concert shows, different events and venues, whether it's a charity run or it's Fright Nights. It could be anything. But so there's local updates. There's this day in rock history. There's elements that change on a daily basis, but it's just all music. And so for people that want something a little bit different, the average commute time in Syracuse is under 20 minutes. Maybe you want to hear all music on your way to work instead of some music, some talk, and a lot of commercials,
Right.
Which is another thing. Because we're a startup, and because the overhead is very low right now, all of our commercial breaks are 2 minutes or less, and 2 minutes goes by like that.
Noticed.
And it's very easy to listen to as a listener. And as an advertiser, your spot, your commercial, your business stands out because it's part of a smaller group of commercials instead of a larger group of commercials. An average 7-minute commercial break could be, 14 spots if they're 30-second commercials.
Sure.
Now we're running a 2-minute break. So, there's pluses and minuses to everything. We're trying to maximize the situation that we're in. And that's one of the ways that we're doing it, by giving people just music 24 hours a day without any breaks.
So 5 months into this now, how do you feel about the public's response, and what kind of ideas do you have to better that response?
It's always going to be a challenge to get people to find us and figure out where we are and what we're doing. It's always going to be that way because the technology, people haven't caught up to the technology that's already there. But we went, we have an app, as I mentioned, on our phone, a phone app. It's the Rebel Rocks. And, prior to us leaving the radio, terrestrial radio, we were averaging probably 2,000 or 3,000 app starts, people starting up an app on their phone per month. Since June, because these are metrics that you can measure. You can go, anybody that's got a website can tell you how many people have checked it out, how long they stay on, how many starts per month. These are things that you can actually check.
Substantial stats.
Things the numbers that you can look at and are measured. Well, now we're averaging, since June, between 13 and 14,000 app starts a month. So it's substantially more. And you can see the amount of people and the unique listeners and how long they listen for. I mean, we're up almost 20% from last year alone in total listening hours. So, we've surprised our benefactors at corporate, at Cumulus. They didn't know, because based on our signal strength as the Rebel, we had a smaller signal. We barely covered Onondaga County. So now they're seeing that you can measure the metrics of the people that are actually listening in on the web or through Amazon Echo by saying, hey, Alexa, play the Rebel Rocks, or through our app, that there's a measurable amount of people that are tuning in and listening for an extended period of time. So, that's good news for us as a radio station moving forward. It's good news for our advertisers that want to get their message out to people that are tuning in and listening for an extended period of time. So, all in all, 5 months in, it's so far so good.
Just got to break the habit of some people, huh?
Well, or create a new habit.
Create a new habit.
It's creating the habit of, I wake up in the morning and and hit the app on my phone, and I can either light up a small speaker that I have, or I can light up my Yamaha receiver and listen on my Bose speakers. But, you know, and with Wi-Fi, you're not using up any data, so it's just listening a different way. I can be upstairs working on music on my computer, and I can listen to the stream through the website. So again, it's just updating your own personal habits into the technology that you probably already own.
Right.
You know?
You can literally take it wherever you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Literally. So what's the future look like? What do you got coming up? What's going on?
Well, one of the things that we're going to be doing, announcing hopefully in the next few days, is because of the success of the station financially, in addition to the amount of, you know, based on the amount of listeners that we have and the advertisers that are attracted to that, is that we're going to be re-adding DJs to the mix. The one thing that we've been doing is playing all music. I've been just doing sweepers, and sweepers are basically small bits of talking in between songs. Like I've pre-recorded things that'll say, hey, thanks for listening, we'll be right back in 2 minutes or less. And they run 24 hours a day. So there's no real DJs on the air. And that's the one thing that people miss, is hearing that personal connection to some of the music. Well, now we're to a point that we can hire people again and put people back on the air on a part-time basis. So we're going to keep the morning show as the morning blend right now with all music, because that's the concept of what it is. And I'm going to go back on afternoons drive, where I used to be for a while, you know, doing 2 to 6. We're going to be putting our market veteran Marty Santi, who had been doing middays, on at night, because he's been in town for 40 years doing what he does, and he's really good at it. And we're going to be putting somebody new on in middays that's part of the local music scene that hasn't done radio before, so we're looking kind of forward to that.
Bring back the old team and adding a new player, huh?
Adding a new flavor. We announce who we're doing? We can announce this, I guess.
It's up to you.
So Missy Thomas is going to be joining us. Missy's got experience in Syracuse. Well, she likes to multitask, and we're going to add to that. So she's a school teacher. She's a professional photographer. She worked for CNY Live as a photojournalist, and now she's going to be doing middays for us from 9 a.m. till 2. Because we're looking for somebody that has the right attitude, that understands local music, that people see out at events, that can be a brand ambassador, that can talk to the lifestyle of being a mom and a teacher and somebody that has to juggle a billion different things at once, which a lot of people can identify with. So, I mean, I think we've assembled a crew of people that, you know, fit the profile of what we're trying to do and the profile of the people that are listening to us.
That's perfect. That's really great. Any shows or anything special coming up after that?
Yeah, we're going to, as we mentioned earlier in the show, we're going to celebrate the 40th anniversary this year on December 1st with an event down at 443 Social Club and Lounge. Originally they called themselves the Listening Room, but they had to change their name. It's over on Burnett Avenue. It's a very comfortable situation, similar to this, you know, with sofas and a very a living room type of atmosphere. And they have a small stage, and we're going to be putting together a live broadcast streaming for about 3 hours. And we've got 12 different bands representing Syracuse area, from solo performers to duos and trios to full bands, but it'll be mostly acoustic. We'll be announcing the lineup very soon. You'll find it on our Facebook page at the Rebel Rocks. You'll find it on our Soundcheck page, our Soulshine page. I mean, we'll be getting the word out as best we can, but it'll be in a very unique event with a very limited amount of tickets available. And again, more information for that will be coming soon.
Well, it's even nice though, you could say limited tickets, but if you get the streaming out and everything, then they don't have to be there if they didn't get tickets, but they can still be a participant in it.
Well, that's the whole idea. I mean, the idea of this show has always been to showcase local bands from my studio. My studio's not real big. I've had plenty of people over the years come in and play acoustic on the air. I mean, not only local bands, but I mean, people like Nils Lofgren have come in. Dave Matthews has come in back in the 90s and played live on the air. And it's a different environment when you're playing in a small studio, acoustic, than it is on a big stage. And a lot of people in town now are now getting back into hearing acoustic bands in smaller settings, which I think is nice. And so what we're trying to do is give people that acoustic experience, whether they're listening on the stream, vicariously, you know, from wherever they're at, in their car or in their living room, Or they could be there in person and experience it for themselves. But one way or the other, they're going to be able to hear the way that radio used to be, where you'd have an artist stop into the studio and share a moment in real time with no overdubs, you know? And I mean, that's how the show started, and so we're going kind of full circle by bringing that kind of live entertainment, live element, you know, kind of living on the wire edge to it. And over the course of 3 hours, it's going to be musical chairs with a dozen bands representing probably close to 30 performers, just on and off the stage, one after another, you know. So it's going to be fun to watch and fun to listen to, you know.
That's actually, I look forward to that. Listening room is a great place to
We'll try to save you a ticket.
Save me a ticket. Give me a spot in the back corner so I don't trip over the drummer and stuff. This is great, and it shows that there's a future there, and that you know, a lot of people, when you first talked about, we had the rumors that the Rebel was going away. We were all happy to hear that we have a better way now. So through maybe a loss, we found something even better and more progressive that can last a lot longer than anything.
This is the kind of radio that I grew up listening to when I was a kid, listening to music in the late 60s, early 70s, progressive FM, when the DJs had were playing a wide range of music. We're coming more full circle. Things are swinging back that way. People have so many entertainment choices between, again, the Spotify's, Pandora, Siriuses of the world. But we've got a local angle to that, and I know the music that people have listened to in Syracuse for 40 years, being part of it on the radio. And we're giving people a different way of listening to music, rather than just randomly hoping they can find something. I have friends that either they say that nobody's making good music anymore, which I have to correct them on, or that it takes them forever to go onto one of these music sites just to find what they're looking for. To paraphrase U2, they still haven't found what they're looking for. So my job, which I've been trying to get better at for 40 years, is to be a curator, is to put those songs together and to make them make sense. To give it a pattern, give it a wave, give it so that there's a transition from an era of one era of music to another, a transition from something that's maybe acoustic into something that rocks harder, and different styles of music, and put that together so that it's not a train wreck, so that it's not completely random, so that there's some sense to it, and give people a mix of music that's easy to listen to, that's compatible, that features familiar songs and artists, but some other songs that may be a little bit unfamiliar, but that are the same compatibility curve, or that's attractive in a similar way. So to me, it's fun as somebody that really likes music to turn. It's like making a mixtape for my friends, and for anybody that used to make mixtapes, you tailor make them to certain sounds and you have certain favorites that you put in, and certain favorites that your friends had that you weave into that mix. And so, I'm just having a blast doing this. I don't think it would have been possible 5 or 8 years ago, but it is possible now, and we're hoping people can catch up to it as we continue.
That's great. Kind of like old school, brought back with new school stuff.
There you go.
It is. Dave, I thank you for coming down.
Sure.
Look forward to December 1st at 443 Social Lounge.
We'll see how the new jock works out for us.
We know. I don't think I could have picked a better ambassador for local music.
Yeah,
okay?
You're right.
So we look forward to hearing Missy's voice on air, other than seeing her at all the local places.
Right.
Videotaping and photographing everybody. So thank you very much for coming down. We're all looking forward to it.
Well, thanks, Fred.
Thank you.